Hello and good morning, everyone. I hope you all are fit and healthy and you all are taking all precautions from the virus. And a very happy new year. And I hope you all have enjoyed your new year parties. Let's move forward. Let's move forward from the parties and let's come back to the studying, as very soon you all will be having your first term examination for the second year BA students. I am doing the special English subject with you all, and as I've shown many times, I'm referring to this book here of additional English, also known as special English. We've done a various topics on the theory of poetry, and my previous topic was blank was free work verse allegory. The ones who have not seen the videos, please go back to the channel and watch the previous videos and do understand it. And today we'll be doing a very new topic of the theory of poetry, and it is a type of poetry that we're going to do. It is known as epic poetry. So I'm sharing my screen here for you all. I hope you all can see the slides, and we'll be starting with the topic right now. The topic's name is epic poetry, a very different type of poetry. And what do you mean by epic poetry? It is a long narrative poem on a great and a very serious topic, relayed in an elevated style and centered on a heroic or a quasi divine figure on whose actions depend the fate of a tribe, a nation, or a human race. Now, what do you mean by epic poetry? Some poetry is like sonnet, it is of 14 lines. Some other poetry, it depends on how short and long it is. But epic poetries are very long poetries. It is known as narrative. That means the whole narration of the event is shown in that poetry. They are very long ones, and mostly the topics for narrative poetry, the topic for epic poetries are very serious and related to a very strong personality in a very elevated style, like a hero who's acting and who is very strong and he is taking care of the people, and the people are under him. A very heroic personality is shown in an epic poetry, and also there is a lot of action in it, where the main actor, the main character of the poetry is having all the action for his people. He's taking all the troubles for his tribe and his nations, maybe for independence, or can be for some other thing, for family, or at a huge thing, you can say, for human race. So these type of stories are known as epic poetries. You, for an example, the movie that you all must have watched, Bahubali, right? A very strong and action character is shown. Bahubali, he is the king, and also the son of the king, and he is the one who's taking care of the people, his nation at large, a human race, right? So these types of stories are written in a poetry form, in a very long poetry form. It is known as a narrative poetry. It's written in a narrative way, and it is known as epic poetry. What do you mean by epic? The word epic means a long narrative poem that relates to the great deeds done by a hero. So, all the deeds that he's done, who embodies the values of a particular society. For example, Akbar, the movie Jodha Akbar, you all must have watched. So, all his deeds and what all he did, how he communicated with the people, how he ruled, was he a good ruler or a bad ruler, how was he with his family life, how did he do justice between people, all of his actions, with whom did he fought, how many lands did he capture, how did he capture them, all of these are described about all his deeds, all his good deeds that are explained in a very large form, and all his values, how he protected the society, is shown in this type of poems. A very long narrative poem is known as an epic poem. Now, epic often concerns eternal human problems such as conflict between good and evil. So, of course, when they have shown the movie of Bahubali, there's the evil side and the good side, both are shown. written or told in a grand scale and often ceremonial style. A very ceremony that this happened on that event, this action was taken, and this thing the king has done. In a very ceremonial, a very grand way it is shown. Now, the two types of epics. So now we'll be seeing what are the different types of epics here. Yeah, here the two different types of epics we are doing right now. So the two different types of epics, the first one is folk epic, and the second one is literary epic. What do you mean by folk epic? Now, folk is an oral compositions passed on from storytellers to storytellers and has changed over time. For example, Gilgamesh, Beowulf, the Iliad, and the Odyssey. Now, all these folk epics, folk means it is a type of song sung by all the storytellers, and in the song, it is description about the kings and how do they fight wars and how the folk tellers tell, right, how what all events happened at that time. So the folk tellers are the storytellers, but they do not tell it in a story form, they sing it in like a song, and therefore it's known as an folk a folk. And then folk epics are the epics that are orally and not in written form, and therefore because it is oral and not in written form, so nobody has any records of it, and it's only passed by one storyteller to another, and it keeps on changing every time, so it's not stable. The other one is literary epic. Now this is the written ones, and therefore it's never changed because there are records of it, and people have written it, and we know by the older written forms, and therefore we cannot change it at all. What is the original form is still the original form. So literary epic, the written forms are still now there, and we cannot change it at all. But folk epics, it keeps on changing from time to time. So now you all can see here origins of epic. So it started in the Egyptian time, hieroglyphics, then epic of the Gilgamesh. Then Moses leads Hebrews out of Egypt. At that time, epics and folks were written. For mostly folk epics were written sung at this time. Then Trojan War, Homer War, first Olympic Games, naturalist, Historia, Olymp Okay, Encyclopedia, The Adventures of Willow, Bible timeline, all these are the origins when it started. Now let's see the characteristics of epic. Usually, epic contains several books or volumes. Many epic poems have oral tradition. That means they're mostly sung and they're spoken about. So people have actually memorized them and recite them, especially in ceremonies. Now, for Christians, you all must have heard the song "Long Ago in Bethlehem." So the Holy Bible says, and also Rudolph the Red-Nosed. Many Christmas carols you can see. Now these are also known as epic. The Christmas carols are epics because they are songs sung from a very long time and also passed on to many people. So these are not written in any form, but they were sung at that time like folk songs, and therefore many storytellers and folk singers keep on singing these, and therefore it is memorized by people right now and sung in ceremonies or at Christmas time. So these are also known as epics. Then in case of Odyssey, it's an example of epic. Some scholars believe that there were episodes that were eventually collaborated into one story. Now very recently this idea of episodes have come, wherein we have series, and in those series we have different episodes. But in Odyssey, this was the first type of story where it was written in episodes. So the first king, his stories were written in episodes. The first episode, then his child, another king, and then his grandson, another king, and then they were written in episodes about what all they have done, and that all whole series became one whole story. So this is also written in several books, and too much of volumes of epics are there in literary epics. Then let's see another characteristics. Original text often has rhyming poetry, poetic devices, often in rhyming couplets, A, B, B, C, C. I mean, these are the rhyming scheme used in epics. Then there is alliteration used, then digressions used, and where myths and all about lords and wind god and all was also spoken and sung. Then a descriptive word or phrase to accompany or replace a person's name. That means if you have read Odyssey, um, brave ODS, or the wine dark sea, or the Red Sea, repetition or recurring lines and phrases occur in the epic. Then what else? Contains a hero with specific characteristics known as an epic hero. More on him later. So in epic stories, mostly heroes have a very huge role to play. And you all must have watched the story of I mean the movie of 300, where the 300 people, skilled people, trained people, had a war against so many. So in that, how the king is shown, too much of power of the king, and very heroic personality of the king is shown. So like Bahubali in Bollywood, and so these characters play a very important role in the story. That means the whole story is written about the main character, that is the hero. A very heroic type of personality is shown. The setting is vast in scope, so all of his deeds are written, and therefore it's very vast. Sometimes both in time and space it is very far vast. Sometimes even the father's story is written, and then later on his son and his son and grandsons, and so many stories are compiled together. Such as Bahubali, you can see the father and the son, both the stories are made into two different parts. Then it starts in the media res, or in the middle. Story begins in the middle and flashes back so that the reader can understand the current situation. That means, if you see in Bahubali, the first part is about the son, and then they go behind to the father's part, right? In the second, so it's like a suspense, but a very different kind of suspense, wherein normally how the movies or the stories are, the first part is shown and then later on it goes ahead, but here they've done the opposite way. Similarly, in epic stories, the same thing is done. That means the reader should know about the current situation, and therefore the previous thing is shown. A narrator invokes a muse, one of the nine daughters of Zeus that give divine inspiration. So, so much of amusement is shown in it. Then so here you have the same actor that I was talking about, the I mean the movie 300. If you all have not watched this Hollywood movie named as 300, you all have not watched anything. It is a superb movie, and superb training and battles and romance and everything is shown in it. I mean, it's a cluster of all. So you can watch this movie and it's superb. So this is also an example of an epic movie wherein so much about the king is shown, and he's shown with great talent and action and strength and politics and what all about his deeds. And epic also contains all of these things. What all it contains: battles are there, I mean fighting, then romance is there, there's a love story, great journey, how he has passed from the starting to the end and how he captured land slowly and gradually. Then people, items, and all his later on generations are shown. Supernatural influence called as machinery, supernatural powers are shown. Then a descent into the underworld, that is a rebirth. Something of godly nature is also shown. Epic simile, very similar things are shown. Extended formal speeches, so like my lord or my king, I obey you. So such as very specific speeches that in the very olden times were used, are used in epics. Then this is also another movie that you all must have seen. The hero is a figure of great national or even cosmic importance. So the main hero is the main part of the story, usually the ideal man of his culture. So in his full land, the main ideal person of that land is known as the hero of that particular event or that particular region where people praise him and love him and respect him. He often has a superhuman or divine characteristics. He also has an imposing physical structure and is greater in all the ways than the common man. So the main actor is shown of too much importance, right? He not only with his mind, not only how he is with the people, with his nature, his moral values. He has great values where he respects the people. He has great physical stature. That means too much of strength and how the common people cannot have. Then another example, according to Joseph Campbell Bells, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, there are three major stages to the hero's journey: separation, initiation, and a return. So, when he separates with his loved ones, and how he starts a new life, and how is the return of the main actor to his actual family. So, all these three things are important while doing an epic poetry. So all this hero's journey is shown in such epic poetries. Then there's a separation, call of adventure, where you have to go in the mountains and in the forest. Hero becomes aware beyond the natural existence, so he has to go in the forest and all. Refusal of the call, so he does not allow any desire for him to go or for him to leave. Then crossing the first threshold, so he finally crosses what he needs. Hero is tested and is pulled into the new realm, often against his will. So, suppose he loves someone and he has to leave it, it's against his will. Then, all his starting, his father, his family, and everything is shown. Then, how he returns, how he fights all the things, and then he masters all the two worlds, and again he's back and he lives in freedom. Then there are some modern examples of hero's journey. If you can see Avatar, if you can see 300, Lord of Rings. So all these movies are Nemo. All these movies are epic movies written from epic stories. Now let's see an example. Homo. Stories originate from a series of poets who each orally composes an entire different version of a story. Homer is traditionally a blind author of the Odyssey, a wandering bard, holder of myths and history. So Homer was a person who was blind, but he actually spoke about all different stories, and therefore he was very famous in it. Now he was the one who narrated Odyssey, comprised of 12 to 110 lines of dactylic hexameter in the original language Greek. So Homer was a Greek person and he narrated in the Greek language. Is considered the sequel of Iliad, an epic poem about the sacking of Troy. Now follows Odysseus' 10 years journey back to Troy to his island. So all that story that is given in that thing. So these were the examples of epic poetry, and I hope you all understood what is epic poetry. In short, it is a very long and narrative poetry wherein the hero, the main character, is given a lot of strength and a lot of tactics and strength, and he's the main person. A very long thing about his life is written. Therefore, you can say, for example, how Bahubali is written, or maybe how Akbar, Jodha Akbar is there. So all these are examples. For in Hollywood, you can see 300 Lord of Rings. Many examples are there. I hope you all understood what is epic story and what is epic poetry. From many of these poetries combined together, they make a story. From the story, they actually make a movie. So whenever we watch a movie, you should go back to poetries that we are doing. I hope you all understood and enjoyed it. Please give it a like and also subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much, everyone.